The Amazon rainforest is one of the most dangerous places on Earth. It's home to poisonous snakes, hungry jaguars, and insects that can make you very sick. Most people who get lost there don't survive more than a few days. But Marcus Rivera wasn't like most people. His story of survival is so incredible that even experts can barely believe it. Marcus was a 32-year-old nature photographer from Brazil. He had been taking pictures of wild animals for 10 years. In March 2023, he joined a small group of scientists who were studying birds deep in the Amazon jungle. They were traveling through a part of the forest where very few people ever go. On the 5th day of their expedition, something terrible happened. Marcus was walking behind the group, taking photos of colorful butterflies. He stopped to change his camera lens. When he looked up, the rest of the group was gone. He called out to them, but nobody answered. He tried to follow their footsteps, but the jungle floor was too wet and muddy to see any tracks. Marcus realized he was lost. His heart started beating very fast. He reached for his backpack to get his phone, but then he remembered something horrible. He had left his backpack at the campsite that morning. All he had with him was his camera, a water bottle that was almost empty, and a small knife on his belt. He had no food, no map, and no way to call for help. As the sun began to set, Marcus knew he needed to find shelter quickly. The jungle becomes very dangerous at night. He found a large tree with thick roots that created a small cave-like space underneath. He gathered big leaves and branches to make the space more protected from rain and wind. That first night was the worst night of his life. The jungle was full of scary sounds. He heard animals moving in the darkness. Insects crawled on his skin. It rained so hard that water came into his shelter. He was cold, wet, and terrified. He didn't sleep at all. He just sat there holding his knife, waiting for morning to come. When the sun finally rose, Marcus felt a little bit of hope. He decided to stay calm and think carefully. He remembered watching survival shows on television. He knew that panic was his biggest enemy. He needed to focus on 4 basic things: water, food, shelter, and rescue. Water was the most important thing. A human can only live about 3 days without water. Marcus's bottle was already empty. He knew he couldn't drink water directly from the river because it could make him very sick, but he also knew he would die without water. He remembered something he learned in school. Plants in the rainforest have water inside them. He found some thick vines hanging from the trees. He cut one vine with his knife and was amazed when clean water started dripping out. He put his mouth under the vine and drank. The water tasted a little bit like wood, but it was safe to drink. Marcus also learned to collect rainwater. It rained almost every afternoon in the jungle. He used large leaves to catch the rain and funnel it into his water bottle. This was much safer than drinking from streams. He made sure to drink water many times every day, even when he wasn't very thirsty. Finding food was much harder than finding water. Marcus had never been so hungry in his entire life. His stomach hurt constantly. He felt weak and dizzy. He knew he needed to eat something soon, or he would become too weak to survive. He remembered that many fruits in the Amazon are poisonous. He couldn't just eat any fruit he found. He watched the monkeys and birds very carefully. If he saw animals eating a certain fruit, he knew it was probably safe for him to eat too. He found small purple fruits that monkeys were eating. He tried one fruit very carefully. It tasted sour, but it didn't make him sick. Marcus also found palm hearts inside certain palm trees. He had eaten palm hearts in restaurants before. He used his knife to cut into the trunk of a young palm tree and pulled out the soft white inside part. It was difficult work and made his hands hurt, but the palm heart gave him important nutrients and energy. On the 4th day, Marcus found something that probably saved his life. He discovered a termite nest. He knew that indigenous people in the Amazon eat insects for protein. So hungry that he didn't care how disgusting it seemed. He broke open the nest and ate the termites. They were crunchy and tasted like dirt, but they gave him the protein his body desperately needed. After 3 days of terrible rain and cold nights, Marcus decided he needed to build a better shelter. His first shelter under the tree roots wasn't good enough. He was always wet and couldn't rest properly. He found a spot on higher ground where water wouldn't collect when it rained. He cut down small trees and branches using his knife and arranged them in a lean-to shape against a large tree trunk. He covered the frame with huge jungle leaves, overlapping them like tiles on a roof, so rain would run off instead of soaking through. He made a raised bed inside, using more branches and soft leaves. This kept him off the wet ground. The difference was amazing. That night, he actually slept for a few hours. Sleep gave him energy and helped him think more clearly. The Amazon jungle is full of creatures that can kill you. Marcus had several terrifying encounters that could have ended his life. On the 6th day, he almost stepped on a bushmaster snake. This is one of the most poisonous snakes in South America. One bite can kill a person in a few hours. The snake was lying across the path, perfectly camouflaged against the brown leaves. Marcus saw it at the last second and jumped backward. His heart was pounding so hard he thought it would explode. The snake slithered away into the bushes. Marcus was so scared he couldn't move for several minutes. The insects were another constant problem. Mosquitoes bit him hundreds of times. His skin was covered with itchy red bumps. Some bites became infected and swollen. He was very worried about getting malaria or dengue fever from mosquito bites. He knew these diseases could kill him. Marcus remembered seeing indigenous people use mud as protection. He covered his skin with thick mud from the riverbank. The mud dried on his skin and created a barrier that kept many insects away. It also helped soothe the itching from bites he already had. One night, he woke up to find a large tarantula spider walking across his chest. These spiders aren't usually deadly, but their bite is very painful. Marcus stayed completely still, barely breathing, until the spider walked off him and disappeared into the darkness. He didn't sleep anymore that night. Marcus knew that nobody would find him by accident. He had to do something to help rescuers locate him. The problem was that the jungle canopy was so thick that nobody could see the ground from an airplane or helicopter. He walked to a nearby river where the sky was more open. Using his knife, he cut down small trees to create an opening in the vegetation. In this clearing, he arranged white stones from the riverbank in huge letters that spelled SOS. He used his knife to cut away grass and create contrast so the letters would be visible from above. He also knew that smoke could be seen from far away. Every day, he tried to start a fire using the friction method. He had watched this on survival shows. He rubbed a stick against a piece of soft wood very fast, trying to create enough heat to make smoke and then fire. It was incredibly difficult. His hands became raw and bloody from rubbing the sticks together. It took him 3 full days of trying before he finally created a small spark that turned into smoke and then a tiny flame. He was so happy he almost cried. Fire meant warmth, a way to cook food, and most importantly, a signal for rescue. He kept the fire burning all the time, adding green leaves to create thick white smoke during the day. At night, he kept the flames bright, hoping someone might see the light. The physical challenges were terrible, but the mental challenges were even worse. Being completely alone in the jungle was psychologically devastating. Marcus talked to himself constantly just to hear a human voice. He sang songs he remembered from childhood. He told stories to imaginary people. On the 9th day, he felt like giving up. He was so tired, so hungry, and so alone. He sat by his fire and cried for the first time since getting lost. He thought about his family, his friends, and his comfortable life in the city. He wondered if anyone was still looking for him. Maybe they thought he was already dead, but then he thought about his younger sister. She was only 16 years old. He imagined her crying at his funeral. That image made him angry. He decided that he would not give up. He would survive and see his family again. This decision gave him the strength to keep going. On the 11th day, Marcus found something that gave him tremendous hope. While exploring near the river, he discovered old machete marks on tree trunks. Someone had been there before. Indigenous people or rubber tappers must have traveled through this area. He followed the marks carefully. They led him to a very faint trail. The trail was almost completely overgrown, but it was definitely a path that humans had made. He felt a rush of excitement. If he followed this trail, maybe it would lead him to a village or a road. Marcus marked his current shelter location carefully so he could find his way back if needed. Then he began following the trail. He moved slowly and carefully, making sure he didn't lose the path. He marked trees with his knife as he went, creating a trail he could follow backward if necessary. On the 13th day, Marcus heard something that made him stop and listen very carefully. It was a sound that didn't belong in the jungle. It was the distant sound of a motor. It sounded like a boat engine. He ran toward the sound, not caring about the branches that scratched his face and arms. The sound was coming from the river. He pushed through the thick vegetation and reached the riverbank. In the distance, he could see a small wooden boat moving slowly down the river. Marcus screamed and waved his arms frantically, but he was too far away. The boat was too loud. The people on the boat couldn't hear him or see him. He watched in despair as the boat disappeared around a bend in the river. He collapsed on the riverbank and felt like his heart was breaking. He had been so close to rescue, but then he had an idea. If one boat came down this river, more boats would come. He just had to wait and be ready. He gathered all the dry wood he could find. He prepared a massive signal fire on the riverbank. He made sure he had green leaves ready to create smoke. Then he waited, keeping watch on the river, ready to light his signal fire the instant he saw or heard another boat. On the morning of the 14th day, Marcus heard another motor sound. This time, he was ready. He lit his signal fire immediately. Within minutes, huge clouds of white smoke were rising into the air. The boat came around the bend. It was carrying local fishermen. They saw the smoke immediately and turned toward the shore. When they saw Marcus standing on the riverbank, waving frantically, they couldn't believe their eyes. They had heard about the lost photographer. The search and rescue teams had given up hope days ago. Everyone thought Marcus was dead. The fishermen brought Marcus onto their boat. They gave him water and food. Marcus was crying and laughing at the same time. He couldn't believe he was finally rescued. He had survived 14 days alone in one of the most dangerous places on Earth. When Marcus finally returned to civilization, he had lost 28 pounds. His body was covered in infected insect bites. He had several cuts that had become infected. He was dehydrated and malnourished. He spent a week in the hospital recovering. The doctors said that Marcus survived because he kept his mental strength and made smart decisions. He found water immediately. He found food even though it was disgusting. He built shelter. He kept trying to signal for rescue. Most importantly, he never gave up hope. Marcus's story became famous around the world. Survival experts studied what he did to stay alive. His story is now taught in survival training courses. He proved that with knowledge, determination, and mental strength, humans can survive in even the most impossible situations. Today, Marcus still works as a nature photographer, but he never goes into the jungle without proper equipment and a GPS tracker. He says those 14 days changed his life forever. He appreciates every meal, every comfortable bed, and every moment with his family. He learned that survival isn't just about physical strength. It's about the power of the human will to live.